Membership of the committee itself. Everyone here is printed. I see Councillor Sheard is not here. Right, thank you. Councillor Mohan.
Yeah, also per councillor should be at Pandora.
And everyone else is down.
Apologies from Councillor Bamford as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Pivet.
Oh. Emma?
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Pervez.
Oh, thank you. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Can we accept those as a true record? Moved and seconded. Item 3, declarations of interest and lobbying. We'll start going around this table. Councillor Lowe.
None, Chair.
None, Chair. Councillor Sokal.
None, Chair.
Councillor Anwar.
Nothing to declare.
Councillor Ramsey.
None, Chair.
Councillor Pinnock.
None, Chair.
Councillor Lawson.
None, Chair, thank you.
And Councillor Gregg.
None, Chair, thank you.
None from me either. Item 4, admission of the public. This is a public meeting. Item 5, deputations and petitions.
None, Chair.
Item 6, public questions time.
There's no questions, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, site visit application took place this morning at the Babes in the Wood at Woodkirk. And item 8, a site visit took place at Bradford Road, Cleckheaton, and at Royds Park. So we'll go on to the applications as proper. Item 9, applications to record Moor Lane Family Tyres as a public footpath bridleway on the definitive map and statement. To consider report. Mark.
Yep, thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen. So in this presentation today, I'll cover the agenda item, statutory provisions, consultation, user evidence, a first recommendation, documentary evidence, second recommendation, and conclusion. The agenda item before the committee is not a plan application, but concerns the definitive map and statement, which is the legal record of public rights of way. Officer's remit is to continuously review the definitive map and statement. In 1996 and 2007, Kirklees Council received applications under Section 53 of the Wildlife and Consent Act 1981 to modify the definitive map and statement. The application seeks to record Moor Lane, Family Tyres as either a public footpath or public bridleway, and were collectively supported by 20 user evidence forms. Kirklees Bridleways Group also provided documentary evidence in 2020 and have made a representation to this meeting. The Planning Inspectorate is directed at Kirklees Council must determine applications by the 30th of November 2022. So, Family Tyres is located to the southwest of Huddersfield, and the route in question is known as Moor Lane between Farnley Road and Manor Road. The route commences on Farnley Road and leads to a gate on which there is a sign which says permissible right of way on foot. The route continues through a wide track and leads to another gate with another permissive sign. These signs were erected in 2020. The route then significantly narrows and leads through several stiles. In places, it is very narrow due to overgrown vegetation. And there is another sign at the Manor Road end stating permissive footpath, caution livestock grazing. The route continues and then leads to a tarmac section of road as part of the development for Tanner's Croft and Ashcroft properties. The statutory provisions are Kirklees Council has a statutory duty to make a definitive map modification order upon the discovery of evidence which satisfies the provision in section 53(3)(ci) of the Wildlife and Consent Act 1981. At a minimum, the agenda item must be determined according to the following lower threshold test. Is it reasonable to allege that a right-of-way subsists? If there is a conflict of credible evidence and no incontrovertible evidence that a way cannot be reasonably alleged to subsist, then Kirklees Council should find that a public right-of-way has been reasonably alleged to subsist. A consultation was conducted in August-September 2023 for 28 days. 21 members of the public responded and provided evidence of use. 13 subsequently completed a user evidence form, and in total, the Council received 41 user evidence statements, forms or statements, providing evidence of public use along Moor Lane Family Tyres. Kirklees and Parish Council support the applications and highlighted the need to safeguard the continued use of the application route by including it on the definitive mapping statement. Landowners and adjacent landowners were consulted, and their statements have been considered. One submitted a representation that has been circulated to members in the update document. The user evidence was analysed under Section 31 of the Highways Act 1980 for presumed dedication. The public right to use the way was brought into question by the Schedule 14 application in 1996. The relevant 20-year period to consider user evidence is therefore 1976 to 1996. Moor Lane was used by 30 people on foot during the relevant period, 20 throughout and 10 for part of the period. It is the collective use that is important. The quality and quantity of use is sufficient to represent use and enjoyment by the public. The public use was without force, secrecy or permission, and without interruption. Currently, no evidence of challenge to use or a lack of intention to dedicate a public footpath during the relevant period. Therefore, in the first instance, it is considered reasonable to allege that a public footpath subsists along Moor Lane prior to the erection of permissive signs in 2020. The first recommendation is therefore based on user evidence. A definitive map publication is recommended to record a public footpath along Moor Lane between Manor Road and Farnley Road at 2 metres width, with limitations of stiles and gates. The definitive map officer recommends that if a definitive map modification was made to record a public footpath, then Kirklees Council should actively support confirmation of the definitive map modification order. However, in 2020, Kirklees Council Bridleways Group submitted documentary evidence in support of a vehicular highway. Kirklees Bridleways Group have also made a representation to the agenda item, which has been circulated to members in an update document. The definitive map officer has investigated the evidence and conducted their own research. Evidence in support of vehicular status is primarily based on 3 documents: Greenwood's 1817 map of the County of York, 1893 Ordnance Survey map, and the 1910 Finance Act map. This is an extract of the Greenwood's 1817 map of York. It shows Moor Lane as a crossroad. The definitive map consisting of the guidelines state, in modern usage, the term crossroad or crossroads is generally taken to mean the point where 2 roads cross. However, old maps and documents may attach a different meaning to the term. These include a highway running between and adjoining other highways, a byway and a road that joins regional defences, and therefore inspectors will need to take into account the meaning of the term. The meaning may vary depending on the road patterns markings on each map. However, in 1817 there was an advert for the production of this map, which states that it will show public and private roads. Furthermore, in Mersham Manor v Colton and Purley UDC, 1937, the judge did not consider that the depiction of a route as a road on Greenwood's map of 1822 and 1823 provided evidence of public status. However, in Fortune and Others versus Wiltshire County Council and Another, 2012, the judge considered that the depiction of a route on Greenwood's 1829 map of Wiltshire added further support of public status in corroboration with other documents. Hollins and Oldham 1995 noted that commercial maps are liable to human error to some extent, whilst Trafford versus St Faith's 1910 attributed a little bit of weight to a commercial map. Lastly, in Norfolk versus County Council versus Mason 2004, the judge stated that a commercial map was anything but a firm indicator, and not too much reliance can be placed on it. The judgment declared that commercial maps are not sufficient in isolation to automatically infer highway status, and it's difficult to reconcile highway status to Moor Lane due to the 1817 advert. However, in corroboration with other evidence from other sources, it can tip the balance in favour of such status. Next is the 1893 25-inch OS map. Moor Lane is shown with shading on its southern side. If shading of a route resembles the depiction of known vehicular highways, an inference may be drawn that the status is similar. However, an 1885 Ordnance Service circular stated that metal private roads were to be classified in the same way as secondary public roads, but with less prominent shading. However, in roads on OS 1 to 2500 plans, 1884 to 1914, the author states that it is not possible to identify whether a shaded line indicates a public or private road, and a 1-inch OS map should be consulted. Additionally, there is a disclaimer which limits the evidential value of the OS map. It states the representation on this map of a road, track or footpath is no evidence of the existence of a right-of-way. Next, we consider the 1896 1-inch OS map, which shows only part of Moor Lane as a fenced metalled road, third class, at the location of a brewery and up to the track leading to private land. The category includes private roads. The remainder is shown as an unmetalled road or fourth class, which includes private roads and is not in the same manner as other known vehicle highways, with most continuing to be shown as fenced metal road second class. In roads on OS 1 to 2500 plans 1884-1914, Dr. Yolanda Hudson states, private roads, which might have been shown as at least second class on the 1 to 2500 plans, were generally shown as third or fourth class at the 1-inch scale. These distinctions will have been made as a result of using supporting material that explained and amplified the lines on the 1 to 2500 plan. The 1-inch scale is therefore more reliable in showing road classification than the large-scale plans. Next is the 1910 Finance Act map. A route shown external to a hereditamент raises the possibility that it was considered a highway because it was in public ownership and vested in the Highway Authority. And that statement is supported by Agambar 2001 and Fortune 2012. The practice may also be compatible with Section 25(3) of the 1910 Finance Act, which takes into account the diminishment of land value due to public rights of way. However, it should not be assumed that the existence of public carriageway rights is the only explanation for the exclusion of a route from adjacent hereditaments. An excluded road may suggest a route used by multiple owners occupiers to access adjoining lands. Additionally, Finance Act records are not definitive, but form one part of the puzzle to be considered along with other relevant evidence. So, in this case, Moor Lane is shown excluded from adjacent hereditaments. However, private roads with coexisting public footpaths are also shown in the same way. Additionally, private roads with coexisting public right-of-way is shown in the same manner, whilst private roads that are not recorded or claimed as a public right-of-way are also shown excluded. In summary, Moor Lane has existed as a significant feature since at least the early 19th century. There is no single piece of evidence that is determinative of its status. Greenwood's 1870 map of York advert indicates that it shows public and private roads. The OS maps are inconclusive as to public or private status, and public and private roads are excluded on the 1910 Finance Act map in the area. However, returning to the threshold statutory test, in totality there is some synergy between the documents to infer vehicular highway status, and a conflict in the interpretation that can be placed on upon the documentary evidence. Additionally, there is no evidence that would inevitably defeat the claim of vehicular highway status. It is recognised that, on balance, it would be a rational decision for members to decide to make a DMMO based on the interpretation of the documentary evidence that it is reasonable to allege the existence of a vehicular highway. As none of the exceptions in Section 67 of the Natural Environment and Rural Communities Act 2006 apply, any mechanically propelled vehicular rights have been extinguished as a result of the 2006 Act. The appropriate status to record the route would therefore be a restricted byway, which is the public right-of-way on foot, horse, cycle or cart for non-mechanically propelled vehicles, with the width of the way being that shown excluded from the hereditaments on the 1910 Finance Act map. In conclusion, there are three options open to members, as listed in the committee report under the heading Guidance to Members. The first option is to make a DMMO to record a public footpath based on user evidence. The second option invites members to make a DMMO based on their own interpretation of the evidence. In particular, following the submissions and representation by Kirklees Bradwell's group, it is recognised that, on balance, it would be a rational decision for members to decide that it is reasonable to allege the existence of a vehicular highway. If so, a DMMO should be made to record a restricted byway. Members are also asked to decide whether Kirklees Council will actively support confirmation of any DMMO or remain neutral. Members may also decide not to make a DMMO, which the applicants can appeal.
Thank you, Mark, for that.
Based on historical fact, Moor Lane should be recorded as a restricted byway. Two elements of law must be weighed. The first is the crossroad label. The Oxford English Dictionary, 3 High Court and 3 Appeal Court judges confirm that a crossroad, so called because it crossed the land connecting one road to another, defines a public vehicular road. Moor Lane was recorded on Greenwood's 1817 road map as a free-to-use crossroad. Greenwood's atlas of all county road maps merits high provenance, being kept in the National Archives, and crossroads are depicted in every legend on every single page. There is no other label given to the only second-class public roads shown, which was in 1817, the Cartographic Convention. Crossroads were used for local journeys and to ride and drive horses between turnpike roads. Back then, it was the conventional sign for a public byway to provide landscape knowledge and plan journeys. Moor Lane was built for and used by horses, ridden and driven, from its beginnings. It directed the public to the moor. The legal maxim, once a highway, always a highway, must prevail, according to judges, DEFRA, and the Planning Inspectorate. Highways can only be lost by way of a court order of 2 magistrates, which has not happened. It matters not when the last horse travelled this public road. The second is the Finance Act map. Moor Lane was not claimed as privately owned land liable for tax under this Act by anyone. Proof of absolute title has not been produced. So it was not a private for use road in 1910, which means that it could only have been a public road. And if it was a public road then, it is a public road now. There is no incontrovertible evidence. The courts are clear that Finance Act maps are very strong evidence of public road status for every road excluded from private holdings. Not all public roads were maintainable at public expense by the former UDC. This explains why it was not on their list of streets. And this is the reason we also have a definitive rights-of-way map to record lesser roads. Minor roads can be repairable by reason of historical land tenure, an omitted fact in your report. So private road is an ambiguous term, often misused to deny public status. Therefore, Crossroad and Finance Act road evidence is mutually corroborative of public vehicular status and concurs with the 1893 OS map regarding a second-class metalled carriage road. Together, this strongly meets the legal test of reasonable allegation. To deny this evidence would be an error of law, according to a
30 seconds,
public law
Susan.
barrister. Thank you.
Please. Thank you, Helen. 3 minutes.
Oh, shouldn't. I'll start again. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Helen Leach, representing the Huddersfield Rucksack Club, a club that was founded in 1930. Moor Lane near Farnley Tyres is a delightful track surrounded by beautiful countryside and with a real sense of history. We, as a club, claimed the route as a footpath in 2007. I was one of the claimants. Our guiding light was long-standing club member Duncan Smith, sadly now deceased. He walked the path in the 1930s as a schoolboy from his school in Kirkburton, and he continued to do so throughout his life. More than ever now, we recognise the benefit of walking in nature, and this path certainly provides a sense of well-being. I trust that members of the Kirklees Planning Subcommittee will follow the first recommendation of Mark Drysdale's meticulous report and approve Moor Lane to be registered as a definitive public footpath on the Kirklees records. At no time in that 90 years that I'm spanning here has a horse ever been seen on using that track. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Mark, would you like to make any comments on those representations?
Just to say that majority of land is freehold and is registered on land registry. And I have here before me a piece of paper from Susan Taylor that says pre-1835 Agent Lane. If that was the case, it would be a highway maintainable public expense, and then it wouldn't be privately maintainable. So there's no reason why it was excluded from the list of highways in 1925.
Thank you, Mark. And any comments from them? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Mark Drydale for the extremely meticulous report that we've got. And it just indicates to us who sit on planning committees how intricate the law is in relation to public rights of way, and how difficult it can be sometimes to disentangle the various strands that go to make up this what is actually sometimes quite a difficult area of the law. I certainly believe that an allegation that this should be put on the definitive map has been proved. The only question, it seems to me, is whether it's put on the map as a public footpath or a byway. And I think for the help of members of the committee and indeed anyone else listening, it would be helpful for us to be shown what you know, if the two courses of action are equal or both possible, which is the better course of action to take in this instance, because I think that going back long enough, certainly to 1817, some form of access has been shown to exist on this route. So I think we've got quite a good deal of historical precedent to back us up. So I mean, if other people want to speak, I'll wait for an answer to that question.
First, Mark. Councillor Gregg, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't indicate, but I'm happy to say something. I did used to live in Farnley Tyres, and my mother had a horse at some stables up there. I think if she was on horse, she probably couldn't have got down that road anyway if she was riding down there. So whether that was because there were restrictions of gates or not, I don't know whether she'd have ever wanted to go down that road. Probably not. I do want to thank the officer for a very comprehensive report. It is finely balanced. A lot of people will have objections if potentially they own land and they'd rather it be less complicated with people coming over private land. I understand that. People have animals and livestock and they probably don't want people worrying livestock, whether intentionally or not. I do understand that, but it is leaning towards probably a public footpath, in my view, on this one. And I think that's where the report is indicating members to lean towards, and I'd be leaning towards supporting this on the officer recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Councillor Hall.
Thanks, Chair. Well, first thing is, I'd just like some clarity exactly what it is, what we're voting. I'll tell you for why. I've spotted recommendation on page 123. My colleague at side of me has pointed out other recommendations on page 19. Now, well, the other options. I'd like to know what it is that we're voting on, if it were the recommendation on page 123, I'd be quite happy to move that recommendation if that is what we're voting on. So all in all, it was rather a lot of reading.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, I'm just echoing, I'd like to thank Mark for this very comprehensive report. It was a bit hard going reading it and trying to understand it, and also for Mark's presentation. And I just want to echo what Councillor Steve Hall has said. Just want a little bit more guidance on what's expected of us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, I think I said in the update document that I have reflected over the documentary evidence over the past few days, and I think the best course of action would be to make an order for restricted byway, but reserve and come back to the committee with another report with regards to the confirmation of the order and our stance on that. So I think that would be the best course of action. Is that clear, Councillor? Yeah?
No. Would you like?
Legal Officer Sandra Haig. In the update, it is quite a lengthy update, but there was an opinion put in. They were basically seeking a way of establishing the status of crossroads when the planning inspector made decisions. And whilst the barrister responded that such an application would be inadvisable, there is some useful, it's useful. There they were saying the fundamental reason it is not possible to declare that a route marked on an old map as a crossroad is a public carriageway and a byway open to all traffic without going on to take into account all the relevant factors, including those contained in Section 32 of the 1980 Act, to ascertain the weight to attribute to that particular. And below they go on about all the available evidence on a case-by-case basis apparent from Section 32. Now, the officer report went through all that. The Section 32 said what weight they'd added given to any evidence and came to the recommendation. But in the update, he's saying you as decision maker can add that weight, and that's what he's saying there. So it's up to you to decide what weight you're giving to all of that evidence and come to that decision. Yeah.
Councillor Ramsey, since you heard the update, I'm sure that might have stimulated some more questions.
So we've genuinely got, I think you're right, Councillor Pinnett, in that we should be saying either yes to a footpath or yes to a restricted byway, and that's the choice that we've got, is it? That's what's been set out. And at the moment, you said originally a footpath, and the photo evidence indicates that that's what it's been used as for some significant period of time. But now, on balance, after you've had this update, you're now saying a restricted byway.
Yeah. The documentary evidence is really finely balanced and it could go either way. I think the safest option now, in my opinion, would be to go to restricted byway. It might likely receive objections, but it can be downgraded or stay as it is. So that's why I think we should come back with a second report saying that right now we think on balance probability it's a public footpath, and it might be up for Kirklees Bridleways Group to go forward with restricted byway to support that. Does that answer your question?
So your recommendation is that we go to byways, restricted byways, and if there are objections to that, it can be downgraded. But if we went to footpaths and there were objections to that, it couldn't be upgraded. Is that what you're saying?
It could be upgraded, but I still just think right now the evidence so far is really finely balanced that it meets the test. I think it's the safest option.
Can I be clear, Mark, that the officer recommendation today is that members support a restricted byway, and then it may be subject to another report on another day?
Yeah.
Members clear on that?
Thank you, Chair. Giles Cheetham from Public Rights of Way. I'd just like to clarify and repeat just clarify the process here. So members are making a decision as to whether the council makes an order. That order has to be advertised. If that order is opposed, then the council must submit that order to the Secretary of State at DEFRA for a decision. That is likely to be passed to an inspector, a right inspector at the Planning Inspectorate, who would hold a decision, who would make a decision further to written representations, a hearing, or a full local inquiry. So that is where the final decision is made. If the council makes an order for a footpath, that may be objected to on the basis that it's not enough. If the council makes an order for a restricted byway, it may be objected on the basis that it's too much. And in fact, a footpath also may be objected to on the basis that it's too much. If that is the case, then the council would forward the opposed order to the Secretary of State at DEFRA. When forwarding the order to the Secretary of State at DEFRA, the council should take its position on the order. So if I can just recap what Mark is saying, is that as it stands at the moment, the officer's recommendation is that if an order is made for a public footpath, then the recommendation at the same time would be for members to give authority for the council to support the confirmation of that order by the Secretary of State if it was objected to, or by the council itself if it is not objected to. What Mark is also saying is if the council makes an order for a restricted byway, that would be advertised, and when it is advertised, we would wait and see whether there are any objections to it, and if there are objections to it, then Mark would return to committee with regard to the council's stance on an order for a restricted byway. And at that point in time, the council could say, well, we will support the confirmation of the order further to its amendment to a footpath, or we would say we wouldn't object to it being confirmed as it is as a restricted byway, but it may be for other parties to seek promotion of the confirmation of the order as a restricted byway. In other words, at that point in time, it may be quite reasonable for the council to go forward and effectively fight for it to be recorded as a footpath at least, and if other parties wish to engage at that point to support confirmation of the order as a restricted byway, then they may do so by making appropriate representations in that process. I hope that that's clear in regard to what is being referred to as far as the process. As far as the process is concerned, so in relation to coming back to committee, is that if an order is made for a restricted byway and it is opposed, is that correct, Mark? If it is opposed, then Mark would come back with a report to committee regarding the council's stance, in other words, its opinion on what we do with the order when we submit it to the Secretary of State. Do we support it in its entirety, or do we support it up to the point of it being a footpath? And if anybody else wants to argue that case, then they may step in and do so. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Well, what I said earlier about this area of law being quite complicated has been shown to be true, but in order to move towards a decision, I would like to move that we confirm an order to make this a restricted byway, and see what happens when it's published.
Councillor Gregg indicated Mark before.
Thank you. If I could ask through yourself, Chair, another question, if that's possible, to Mark. If in the eventuality that we do support today the byway proposal, could we understand a little bit more of what the likely objections to that are likely to be, in terms of understanding if it goes to the Secretary of State? We've had some expression in here that there's people that don't want the byway, and with regards to that, just if you could expand on that. And just to the other point, if it is a byway, what does that make in terms of there's gates and things along the way here? Do they have to be removed in those eventualities? Because it's set up now for a footpath, isn't it? So it's presumably if it's a byway, do gates have to be removed for access for people on horseback?
Yeah, I said in my report, the presentation, sorry, that any DMO would not record, first it's a byway, would not record the gates or stiles. And for the access for right-of-way users, it had to be opened up to its full width, that's recorded on the definitive mapping statement. So that's the first question. Sorry, second question. What was the first question?
It was just to understand the objections that are likely to come as because presumably the cost of that is going to be. Sorry, Chair, through yourself here. Through the cost of that is going to have to be incurred via presumably people who own the land.
It will be open to public a formal public notice period, and anybody could object to the order. Potentially landowner, could be user groups. It could be anybody. We can't say for certain, but right now there is no objections for that status.
So my point is, Chair, if I can ask again through yourself, if I was owning the land and we make this decision today, are we likely to be causing them to have to incur costs to make changes for this order?
It's just the start of the process. So they've still got remedies that they can take to object to the order.
But theoretically, sir, that's where I was coming from. Yeah, thank you.
Just to move progress, I would be quite happy to support Councillor Pinnock in going for it being a restricted byway. And let's see what comes.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lawson, you.
Yeah, I was going to second Councillor Hall, but yeah, I think it's been well explained the legal kerplunk that we've gone through, if you like, and this seems the best way forward. So yeah, I support that.
Chair, can I just Thank you, Chair. In response to the councillor's point before, what is very important for members to note is that the cost either to the council or other parties is absolutely not a material consideration in this decision. It is a quasi-judicial consideration of the evidence presented regarding the highway status, and the cost to the council or any other party is absolutely not a material consideration in this decision. It may be in other factors to do with public rights of way, but it isn't in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Four.
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 Against.
That's carried, thank you.
We go into the second one. Mark, over to you again.
So in this presentation, I will cover the agenda item, statutory provisions, consultation, user evidence, recommendation, and the conclusion. The agenda item. In 2019, Kirklees Council received an application under Section 53 of the Wildlife Consent Act 1981 to modify the definitive mapping statement. The application seeks to record a public footpath through Farnley Bank Wood, leading from definitive public footpath Cape Burton 5510 at Upper High Fields to Woodson Road. It was supported by 34 user evidence forms, and the Planning Inspectorate has directed that Kirklees Council must determine the application by the 11th of August 2021. So it's located in the same area of Farnley Tyres and is shown highlighted yellow, leading through Farnley Bank Wood. The photo shows the commencement of the footpath at Cape Burton 55, and it leads through the woodland. Today, there are notices present on the trees, say some private land. It continues through the woodland and leads to a barbed wire fence, which was erected in 2019 and was the overt act that led to the submission of the application. The route continues to a vehicular track that leads to a bowling club, the Farnley Tyres Bowling Club. Kirklees Council has a statutory duty to make a definitive map modification order upon the discovery of evidence which satisfies the provision in Section 53CI of the Wildlife Concern Act 1981. The agenda item must be determined according to the following test. Is it reasonable to allege that a right-of-way subsists? If there is a conflict of credible evidence and no incontrovertible evidence that a right-of-way cannot be reasonably alleged to subsist, then Kirklees Council should find that a public right-of-way has been reasonably alleged to subsist. A consultation was conducted in October 2021 for 28 days. 2 members of the public, 1 community group, 1 user group, 2 ward councillors and the applicant responded. Users and user groups support the applicant's case. Landowners were consulted and their statements and evidence have been considered. The user evidence was analysed under Section 31(1) of the Highways Act 1980 for presumed dedication. The public right to use the way was brought into question by Section 31(6) note of the Highways Act 1980 Deposit Declaration in November 2012. The relevant 20-year period to consider user evidence is therefore 1992 to 2012. The application route was used by 23 people during the relevant period, on foot, 10 for a while, and 13 for parts of the relevant period. It is the collective use that is important. The quality and quantity of use is sufficient to represent use and enjoyment by the public. Public use was without force, secrecy or permission and without interruption. There is currently no evidence of challenges to use during the relevant period. The Section 31 test for presumed dedication is therefore met for the relevant period of 1992 to 2012. However, one landowner has indicated the presence of permissive signs initially in 2008 and more recently private signs as evidence of demonstrating a lack of intention to dedicate a public right-of-way during the 1992 to 2012 relevant period. If permissive signs were in place in 2008, this would create an earlier relevant period of 1988 to 2008. However, the burden of proof lies with the landowner and the permissive signs claims lack substantial supporting evidence such as documentary evidence or photographs. Nevertheless, public use during the 1988 to 2008 relevant period has also been analysed, and it also meets the Section 31 test for presumed dedication. Therefore, either way, it is reasonably alleged that the existence of public footpath through Farnley Bank would. A definitive map modification order is recommended to record a public footpath between Kirklees and 5510 at Upper High Fields, through Farnley Bank Wood to Woodson Road, Farnley Tyres. The indicative line and width varies along its length through the woodland, averaging 1 metres to 1.5 metres. Any DMO would accurately record the line and the width with a higher level of precision. The definitive map officer recommends that Kirklees Council should actively support confirmation of the DMO. Whilst not recommended, it is open to the Planning Subcommittee to turn down the application, which the applicant can appeal to the Planning Inspectorate. In conclusion, members are asked to consider the available evidence and select from one of the 3 options listed in both committee reports under the heading Guidance to Members. The first option in the report is the officer's recommendation based on the evidence to record a public footpath. Members are also asked to decide whether Kirklees Council will actively support confirmation of the DMO, which the officer recommends. That's it, Chair.
Thank you, Mark. A bit shorter than the first.
Good afternoon. My name's Frances Holmes and I live in Farnley Tyres. Until 2019, when the footpath was fenced off, I walked this route with my dogs almost daily over 35 years, setting off from the bowling club through Farnley Bank Woods to where it meets the public footpath which crosses the fields at the bottom of Field Lane. The convenience of this circular walk, which starts and finishes at the village centre and is off-road all the way, makes it a very safe route for dog walkers, of which there are many in Farnley Tyres. It avoids using Woodson Road, which is a de-restricted single carriageway with fast-moving traffic and no footpath either side of the road. It takes you through some of the most beautiful woodland, full of bluebells in spring, glorious colours in autumn, and it has, in my opinion, the very best views of Castle Hill from anywhere in Huddersfield. It's been used by ramblers, joggers, families with children, dog walkers for as long as anyone can remember. And the loss of this much-loved local walk was most sorely felt during COVID, when everyone was out walking. Locals were never given a reason why this popular route was suddenly closed to them, and they will be hugely relieved and very grateful for the work of the PROW team if the recommendation to adopt it means we can once again enjoy this walk and it can be preserved for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Jane Faulkner? You have 3 minutes, Jane.
I'd like to read a statement on behalf of the Chair of the Farnley Towers Community Group, please. As Chair of the Farnley Towers Community Group and a resident, I wholeheartedly support the recommendation to adopt both footpaths. Farnley Bank offers a rare walking experience, the joy of walking through woodland with its different colours in changing seasons, and opportunity to spot deer if you're lucky. At the same time, it offers unrivaled views of Castle Hill along Woodson Valley. Likewise, Moor Lane offers tremendous views of Emily Moor and Kirkburton, but unfortunately the path has become overgrown and is currently difficult to navigate, which is a shame. As a mental health nurse with over 20 years serving the NHS, I have learnt to never underestimate the positive impact on both physical and mental well-being through our connection with the natural world. I am passionate that every effort should be made to promote access to the countryside wherever feasible, now more than ever, given the additional stresses as we recover from the pandemic and the cost of living crisis. To this end, I very much welcome the PROW's officer's recommendation for Farnley Bank Walk to be added to the Rights of Way map. And I very much look forward to the formal confirmation of Moor Lane becoming a public right of way. Both walks will offer safe, circular walks from the village, ideal for parents with children and dog walkers. Farnley Bank will helpfully provide links between public rights of ways and keep pedestrians away from Woodson Road, where there's no segregation between walkers and fast-moving traffic. On behalf of the Farnley Towers Community Group and on a personal level, I would like to give a sincere thanks to the PROW team who have investigated both matters, and a particular thanks to the team looking at Farnley Bank so thoroughly, establishing that there is no good reason to prohibit the routes from being adopted. I sincerely hope that both walks, which have been enjoyed by walkers for decades, are soon made accessible again and preserved for public use for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Will you put your recommendations up on the screen, Mark, before I go to members? Jackie? Councillor Ramsey?
I just think this is far more simple than the first one, thank goodness. And I would be happy to move that we support the officer's recommendation for it to be a footpath.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second that because it does seem to me that this is well much simpler than the other one. But I would also like to encourage, and I'm not quite sure how one does this, encourage our officers to make this route walkable. If there is an obstruction, I urge officers to remove it once the order is made, please. So I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Just to be clear, can I direct you to page 159, paragraph 132, and that's what the officer is actually recommending. That's just been pointed out to me. Is that correct? So, it's been moved and seconded.
And also that we support confirmation
confirmation of the order at confirmation stage as well.
Okay, and that's paragraph 135. We support the confirmation. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. We'll go around the table. Councillor Lowe.
For.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Sokal.
For.
Councillor Amber.
For.
Councillor Ramsey.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
And Councillor Gregg.
For.
And I'm for too. Of course, Giles, before he disappears. Thank you. We go now to item 11, the planning application for change of use and formulation of a skate park. Application 2022/92619. Straight in. Sorry, I didn't give you a chance to get out of your chair. He's got a problem.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Sarah Longbottom. I'm the case officer for this application. The proposal is for the change of use of land and formation of skate park at Royds Park, Bradford Road, Rawfolds, Cleckheaton, and members visited the site this morning. The application is brought to committee due to the significant number of representations. 27 representations were received, and of those, 26 were in objection and 1 was received as a general comment. The land to which the application relates is opposite the existing tennis and basketball courts and roughly in the centre of Royds Park. The site is located within the Greenbelt, the Strategic Green Infrastructure Network and Wildlife Habitat Network on the Kirklees local plan. For the reasons outlined in full in the committee report, officers are satisfied that the principle of development is acceptable as it would provide an alternative recreational use within an existing wider recreation area, complying with national and local planning policy. The proposed scheme will be located on land which currently serves a grassed area and a derelict detached outbuilding. The proposal would include the demolition of that outbuilding. There are no trees within the site itself, although there are around the boundary, and the site offers little in the way of ecological value. For the reasons outlined in full in the officer report, officers have no concerns regarding the impact on trees or biodiversity. The proposal would be approximately 500 square metres in area and would be constructed from concrete with wildflower planting adjacent and a total height of between...
I do apologise, I thought I turned it off.
A total height of between 2.1 and 2.5 metres, although the majority would be under a metre in height. The applicant has also included an example of another skate park in High Burton, which was approved in 2016, and that can be seen on the slide that's up now. The proposed development will be a minimum of 52 metres to the nearest residential property on New Street, which is just shown there on the plan. I might need to just zoom in a bit, if that's any better. And officers therefore consider that the scheme would not cause any significant harm to the amenity of neighbouring occupants. In respect of highway safety, although the park has no off-street parking provision, the site is close to public transport links, parking bays on Bradford Road, and it is expected that many users would travel by bike or skateboard or be dropped off. In conclusion, the proposal has been assessed against all relevant local and national planning policies. Members will note from the update that the Coal Authority has confirmed it has no objections to the proposals. I just need to make you aware of a comment that we've received from Councillor David Hall that he's asked me to read out, which states, Councillor David Hall, while supportive of the reprovision of a skate park in the area, requests that the committee satisfy themselves that the siting proposed will not inconvenience nearby residents by attracting antisocial behaviour. Just to conclude, the recommendation is for approval as set out in the update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. We have 3 speakers. Can I bring forward the first speaker, Mr. Jordan Saville?
Afternoon, everybody. My name's Jordan Saville, and my brother Joe's here with me. We're both residents of Eddercliff Crescent, which looks directly onto the site where it's proposed to be built. We've both grown up in the area and are passionate about protecting and improving the little town area as a whole. As a bit of an introduction, I'm a police officer, been one for almost 10 years, and Joe's a senior manager in a construction firm, so he's got extensive knowledge of planning and construction processes, which hopefully brings a little bit of credibility to what we're going to speak about. So I'd produced a bit more of an extensive report in relation to the planning application, but I've decided to cut it down a little. Instead, I'm going to articulate why Royds Park is such an important place to the local community and why it's important that it stays in its current form. As you'll have seen today, Royds Park is a traditional country-style park with open green space and mature woodland. People use this park to escape the hustle and bustle of everyday life, a place where they can take their children and dogs to walk, a place where the elderly feel safe to wander without the worries that they would usually face in an urban environment, such as groups of youths causing trouble. A place where people go to see the wildlife and plants, such as the wide range of birds and bats and all sorts of other wildlife which are on offer. This extends to the views and tranquility the park offers to the houses which surround it. We bought both of our houses on Eddercliff Crescent, seemingly safe in the knowledge that it'd remain a peaceful, quiet area with beautiful views across the park. It's safe to say that I think a skate park would utterly alter that landscape immeasurably for the worse. Green space and wildlife would undoubtedly be affected, and the view will be ruined by the brutalist grey of concrete and the noise pollution, which would probably be unbearable at times. As you may or may not know, there was an old skate park behind Spenborough Swimming Baths, which is opposite the park. This was demolished when the new swimming pool was built. This skate park brought with it far more issues than the minority of people using it for its intended purpose. This is evident by the number of newspaper and social media posts, as well as the comments made by West Yorkshire Police about increasing patrols to that skate park due to the crime and antisocial behaviour which they experienced. Crimes range from criminal damage, including graffiti and damage to the steel and concrete, to arson, theft, robbery, minor and serious assaults, drug use and even sexual offences, of which I've witnessed a number in its time that it was there. The skate park became a gathering point for groups of youths to smoke cannabis and cause disorder and crime rather than actual skaters, to the point where people who actually wanted to use the skate park were scared to go there and would avoid it. By building a new skate park in Royds Park, which already has its own issues, the problems faced at the old skate park would simply be moved to another location and would be more likely magnified due to the seclusion of the area. This is on top of the crime already witnessed in Royds Park, which I mentioned, and these have ranged from criminal damage and graffiti of the old Victorian building, of which you've seen a picture, which would probably better serve repurposing or restoring, where the windows were smashed, roof tiles thrown off for people to gain entry, to arson, where they've set fires within this building, and I've actually had to intervene to stop a full-scale fire breaking out within that small building. Assaults on elderly, where more than one person, in more than one instance, glass bottles and bricks thrown at them, just for challenging groups of youths who were misbehaving. Thank you. Other instances have included drug use and drug dealing, where I've had to confiscate myself countless amounts of drugs from teens in the park and dispose of them appropriately, to sexual offences, where 3 young males approached a middle-aged lady in the park, exposed herself to her, and I've had to physically have to chase them off site. I believe that these are probably going to just be brought into this new skate park area. Yeah.
Afternoon. I'm just going to carry on from where Jordan let off. We had a lot of input in this, putting it together, both us two and the local community where we've been around to get people's views on it. After speaking with the park users, we're in there multiple times a day, walking our dogs, just enjoying the park, and there were a resounding objection to it from the local park users, the majority of which had no idea about this plan. So, just to touch on from where Jordan left off, the police don't have enough resources as it is to police the park in its current state, which is obvious with the issues that are there. We've been in communication probably monthly with West Yorkshire Police and Safer Kirklees regarding the issues there, getting visits from Safer Kirklees and Councillor David Hall to give us updates on what they're providing, what they're planning to put in place to eradicate these issues, nothing of which has materialised yet. But they both had the stance that the erection of this skate park would just only exacerbate the issues that are already there. The public consultation, I know it's in the plans that it said that extensive public consultation had gone on. Last night, me and my brother, we took to the streets to speak to people about what they actually thought. And of the people who did know about it, they objected, and the rest of the people didn't know about it. Once they found out, they objected as well. We've got a petition that we've got signed for people in support of this objection. So in summary, we're passionate about the area, about the community and protecting the park in its current state. We'd like you to reconsider this plan application, possibly in favour of another location. There's Millbridge, tennis court and a bowling centre there that's completely overgrown, completely redundant. That's just been left to ruin. There's where the new sports centre's been built, there's a football field at the back of there, completely overgrown, completely redundant. It's well lit, it's on the same public transport route, it's easily accessible. There's first aiders in the sports centre if needed. There's people in that area all the time. There's already a car park there. And with the parking at Rhodes Park, there is no parking. Edicliff Crescent and New Street is constantly blocked with people visiting there, which will obviously only increase if this skate park goes ahead. The plan states that they expect people to come by public transport, and children aren't going to do that on their own, so they're going to get brought by the parents, which 10 children is 10 cars, and the roads are blocked. So, thank you.
Would you like to make any comments
Through you, Chair. Thank you. We did consult the Council's Design Out Crime Officer, who raised no objections in principle to the proposals.
And there's police at a statutory consultee, are they not? And did they make any comment?
The class is a non-statutory consultee, but they are consulted as, or they were consulted as part of the planning application, that's right. And their comments are included as part of the papers in front of members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Julie. Sorry. Members? Oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Ed Atkinson, please. Welcome, Ed. You have 3 minutes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ed Atkinson. Best if I press the button, isn't it? Sorry about that. My name's Ed Atkinson. I am a detached youth worker with Kirklees Council. Now, my role in the skate park project at Royds Park is solely that of getting a voice for young people and ensuring they've been heard in the process. To this end, what I've been doing is communicating with different groups of young people throughout the process, both locally to the area of Royds Park, Cleckheaton, Liversedge and Littletown, Hetman Wyke as far as there, as well as communities of interest, which is skaters who have historically, as well as sort of currently, would be coming to the skate park. Recently, my work has been with Simon, the architect who will be speaking next, and we developed some consultations for young people, which went out and came back overwhelmingly positive for the designs that have been proposed, as well as the idea of a skate park. We are planning on continuing this consultation moving forward, depending obviously on planning, and as long as the project is there. What I want to draw attention to get that voice of young persons out there is the last part of the consultation that we did, where we asked two very, very simple questions to young people. The first one was, in one word, what does skating mean to you? And the second one was, what would having a new skate park mean to you? For the first question, the most prominent answers from the near 50 responses that we got for that was freedom, friends and community. Young people very, very clearly see this as somewhere where they can be together, a space for them, and something where they can learn new skills, they can develop the friendship groups, and there can be somewhere where they feel safe. For the second question, we had lots of amazing answers. Now, what I have done, and I'm sure it can be made public if necessary, is I've sent that on to a council officer who liaises with councillors, so you can read all of the responses at your own time. But what I want to do is just read one of these responses, which I thought were absolutely amazing. Sorry, I'll just get down to where I need to be for that. So the question was, what does skating mean to you? What does the skate park mean to you? It would mean I could be out in the fresh air with my friends and get exercise. Skating connects people to a common interest. It creates a supportive and encouraging atmosphere where everybody can learn a new skill, and it brings people together. Now, I could go on and on because there were lots of responses and it was all really positive. But hopefully, I've been very clear in the points that young people have been expressing, and that's kind of my sole purpose of being here today. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your listening and your patience.
Thank you, Ed. Simon. Your 3 minutes, Simon.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Fagg. I'm a landscape architect within Kirklees Council and the designer of this skate park. I think the information presented so far has covered many of the issues, so I want to focus on trying to alleviate, hopefully, some of the fears that come with the objections to the park, basically. So I'll work my way through a few of those. Firstly, picking up on the loss of green space, it's a relatively small proportion of the overall park that is going to change to not be green. There's lots of facilities within parks that aren't green in the living vegetation sense, and I think that's something that's well accepted. It's there for an appropriate use for a public park. And it's designed in a way that it's partly sunken and it will be shielded by kind of planted earth banks around the edge of it. So although there is a large concrete structure there, it's not all sticking up kind of effectively. And we'll be bringing in a sort of wildflower-rich grass mixture for some of those banks and things. So that's also looking at improving the overall biodiversity compared to the close-mown just amenity grass that's in that space at the moment. It's designed to be, although there are plenty of large trees around, as has been mentioned, it's designed to kind of fit into spaces where it's not impacting on any of those, and during the construction there will be protective fencing up to make sure contractors' vehicles aren't causing any issues to anything, any root systems kind of that come close to it. So regarding being an eyesore, some of the points I've already mentioned kind of come in. Beauty is always in the eye of the beholder. But skate park design's kind of come a long way. And it's a lot of kind of more interesting sculptural organic forms, things like that. People have often commented as they're being built that they're surprised by how much they like some of the shapes that come with it. The building is due to be removed anyway, although it's mentioned as being part of this application. It's not cost effective to renovate and keep it at the moment. So moving on to antisocial behaviour, antisocial behaviour is always present, but it usually decreases when an area is well used. So we're hoping bringing more people in should have a positive effect there. A skate park I worked on in Stokesley a few years ago led to a 93% drop in reports of antisocial behaviour to the local police from that area. And regarding noise, the design of... I'm not going to get this one, am I?
Thank you, Simon.
No worries.
Members.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I always support the scheme which benefits the local community, especially young people. Yeah. In these days, we have quite few youth clubs have been closed in Kirklees, and the young people have no place to go somewhere else, and they need something which is, this is a proposal, skate park in the park where the young people can occupy there. But I have a bit concern. I come from Huddersfield, which is a Greenhead Park. Near Greenhead Park is in my ward. We had a skate park over there. When it was built about 5-6 years ago, I think now, yeah, we had some complaints from nearby neighbors' properties, yeah, about the noise, antisocial behavior. I mean, some objections are right, yeah. But in the end, the local authority and Kirklees Council or the park, or friends of park, they were involved to minimize those objections from the neighbors because the young people were educated, yeah, not to make the much noises, keep and put under the restriction, yeah. And that skate park is going very well. For the last few years, we haven't got any complaint from the local people. I think the time will change. Main if we put that closing time, I don't know what is closing time of this park is on the, but if we put some reasonable closing time, opening and closing time, that would help, yeah? So, I'm sorry I could not see, I only seen the distance from the neighbor is 52 meters. I don't think there is opening and closing times are, those organizers might know, yeah. If we put some restriction on the timing, then I'm happy to support this. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Sokal. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to officers for this report and also the site visit this morning. I do find site visits invaluable. I'd like to support this planning application. I always get worried that people think skate park antisocial behaviour, whether the skate park or not in a park, they can be prone to antisocial behaviour. But I think this will be a really, really good asset for young and old, because old people, you know, could use it, not just young people, and also there'll be people on the skateboards, bikes and scooters. I have a 6-year-old grandson, he absolutely loves going to his local skate park. And one thing that I did think about this morning when we did go on the site visit was that I do hope that the detached youth workers will go out there and work and support these young people and maybe put some community activities on with them as well. And I would actually welcome one of these in my local park, because I think one of the problems is that kids of today, they always say there's nothing for them to do. So I would welcome a skate park in my local park, so they're not just sat hanging around, that they're actually doing something, being active, mixing with other kids from other areas as well. And one of my favourite places to visit is Hebden Bridge. They've got the most wonderful skate park in Hebden Bridge, and at first sight you might think, crikey, that is covered in graffiti. But if you look close, there's some absolutely wonderful graffiti on this skate park, absolutely wonderful. And there's also some quite profound words on it as well, which hints to community cohesion and kids doing stuff together. So, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Hall.
Chair. Yeah, right. This has been going on for about 5 or 6 years now, this skate park, since the Whitcliffe were involved and the old Spen Valley Sports Centre, it were all part and parcel. So there's 3 of us in this room that were there right from the very beginning, looking at places where we can put it, an alternative new skate park. We've looked around Cleckheaton, we've looked around Liversidge, we've looked at vacant, for argument's sake, bowling areas that are now defunct. We've looked all over. This place was picked specifically because it's slap bang at the side of a main road with a fantastic bus service, first and foremost. Because the kids that are going to be going, they're not going to be going in their own cars, they're going to be going on buses, or they'll be going in their own either bikes or the skateboards, or they might get a parent to drop 3 or 4 of them off. So car parking, that's not a problem. There's been a big consultation right from the very word go. It's been on Facebook. We've had meetings in Cleckheaton Town Hall with up to about 20 youngsters that came, that were all, you know, in favour of it. What we're going to do, what can we do this, can we do that? Somebody did mention about putting it back at the Spen at Keat Fit Centre now. It's not a right good place for, well, it's not a right good place for playing football on, because depending on what the weather's like, usually you're better off going down in a dinghy or a rowing boat. One thing is, there was a problem with the old skate park, and it was a problem with drugs. And that problem was it was behind this old sports centre. There were tarmacked areas leading right up to the skate park. Now, if you watch what young uns do, the big lads in the cars when they're selling the drugs, as I do sometimes in medical centre in Etmond, right, they're going down in the car. Somebody will walk up to the car, window goes down, hand in, hand out, off and away. That's what was happening at the old skates park. That can't happen here, because you can't drive up to it. Next thing is, I would like to thank my ward colleague, Viv Kendrick, for securing funding for it. And on that one, there's something else, but I'll let John mention it, because I thought it was a bloody good idea this morning. So I'm quite prepared to second this application, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Amwell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm all for regeneration as projects across our borough of Kirklees, especially in our parks. And where I come from, my ward, Dewsbury West Ward, we've not had a youth centre for over 15 years. And we're still in the progress of it year after year, back to square one. After reading 27 objections online, I think the most worry for locals is antisocial behaviour and how they tackle it. So obviously, without the skate park being present there now, it's still happening. There is still antisocial behaviour going on. And me personally, I think it could go to a better location away from residential area, instead of having it there, where there are a lot of concerns. I mean, I've read some statements even on Facebook groups about it as well. So I won't be supporting this application, and I move to refuse it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very passionate about youth services, and I'm excited that there potentially could be a new skate park in the area. However, there are a lot of concerns about whether this is the right location. Clearly, the kids will love a skate park. They may be not too fussy about where it is specifically. I don't know, I haven't drilled into the depth of that, but with regards to the concerns that have somewhat been addressed by Councillor Hall, I have a couple of questions for officers through you, Chair, if I could just raise picking up on what's already been said here, based on the concerns with antisocial behaviour and it not causing inconvenience to residents. Before proceeding with the application, I've got some questions with relation to, can CCTV be mandated if it was approved, for example? Because there's been talk of it being requested by the police potentially, but could that be mandated? And secondly, have we explored all other locations? I know that that has been mentioned by Councillor Hall. Has that exhaustively been explored? And lastly, I'm interested in knowing, with regards to parking, how many other skate parks across the district do have parking? I know it's been mentioned there's lay-by, drop-offs points. It's on a bus route, I appreciate that. But I know from skate parks in Marsden and Home Firth, they're quite well served with car parking. Is it commonplace for a skate park not to have car parking? Those are questions I've got with regards to the concerns about, notwithstanding the concerns about the location and the residents' representations today. But we do need more things for young people in the area. So I'm keen to know what the background is to the other locations. Thank you.
Sarah, could you respond, please?
Thank you, Chair. In respect to CCTV, that could be addressed by condition if members consider that to be necessary. I didn't quite get the second question, Councillor, so if you could just, your second query before the parking one.
So, yeah, I was asking about have we explored other areas? For example, it's been suggested that this is not the right area for various reasons. In terms of in the locality, have there been other areas that might be more suitable? My point was that I know that young people will want a skate park. They may not be as precious about where it is as long as it's accessible for them. And if there were any other areas that might have less of an impact on residents, has that been explored?
Can I just respond to that? But we're here to consider the planning application in Wrights Park. We're not here to consider other sites, as the councillor agreed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on to your last question about parking and other skate parks. Some do have parking, some don't. It depends on the location. Some are recreation grounds which don't have their own parking. So there's not really a specific answer to that question, really. It depends on the facilities at those specific sites. Some are smaller recreation grounds, some are larger parks.
Thank you, Sarah. Before we move to Councillor Lawson and Councillor Pinnock, can I bring you in?
Through you, Chair, ranking Highway Development Management. With regards to the parking, as set out in the presentation, the majority of users will arrive by their own means, carrying the bike or carrying the skateboard or riding or come on the bike. There is actually some on-street parking on Bradford Road. As you will appreciate, when we pulled up in the bus today, that was available. So there's probably an opportunity for maybe 8 to 10 cars on street. In addition to that, there's 2 car parks over the other side of Bradford Road, one for the sports centre and one for the running track. So should the need for parking be required, that facility is available. And if they are arriving by car, obviously whoever's driving is going to be old enough to see that they get to the facility safely across Bradford Road. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chair. It was interesting to pick up on Councillor Hall's comments. I am one of those people who've been in this since the beginning. Our speaker, who was talking about consultation with the youth groups that started right at the very beginning, I think hit the nail on the head. Their desire was to have a space like this. I would have loved for it to be in Cleckheaton. Unfortunately, Cleckheaton wasn't the central part. The other advantage that Royds Park had over Cleckheaton site was that it was visible from the main road, and that basically everything that was happening in that park and on that skate park was on display to the public on the main road. And I think that was what settled the location for me. So I hear what Councillor Hall and one of the other couple of councillors have said, but in the end, this was the best site. As far as travelling to the site, what also came through that consultation was that the majority of those children, I could say children, some of them were young adults, were travelling there by bus. Some from South Bradford, some from further south than Spen Valley, but they were all travelling by bus, and they all had a really good knowledge of the surrounding skate parks, and they were all making comparisons. And the previous skate park that there had been by the sports hall was quite well regarded and quite popular because of its safety, because of the safety of the area. I hear the issues that were brought up by the first speakers, and I think we have to accept that as a kind of a lived experience of the residents there. I think what I would possibly ask for, and whether this could be conditioned, is that there is a programme of our community safety officers visiting the site once it's up and running, and I think that wouldn't be too much to ask for. Just to get bedded down what the site is actually for, who it's for, get it practiced, because there is a very responsible community in the skating community that actually they are ambassadors for the cause, if you like. They like to be able to promote skating, and they do that responsibly by people behaving well, and that's what they'll promote with the people who attend. So it's promoting that good behaviour, but having an eye on and monitoring what might not be desirable on the spot. I'd mention one other piece that I think I'd quite like to mention here, possibly just as a footnote, is that I think it would be a good opportunity to put a memorial plaque for Rob Dolby, who was the officer in charge of designing and arranging and pulling together this whole application. And I think it would be appropriate to, I know it's already named and I'm quite happy with the name of Spen Valley Skate Park, but to have a memorial plaque possibly funded, if we can't fund it through the project, then through the local wards development funds. And I think that would be an appropriate use of that funding. Thank you, Chair. Oh, and I'll second it if it hasn't been seconded. It's been seconded, fine. I'll third it then.
Move it, Gwen. Right then.
Happy to move, Chair.
Okay. That's absolutely fine. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I suppose there is a danger that I will repeat a lot of what my fellow Spen Valley councillors have said, but just to re-emphasise that all 9 of us have been in favour of a replacement project for the skate park that was originally established through the work of a former ward colleague of mine at the back of the swimming pool. The problem with things like this is that it is almost bound to cause conflict. And it is my fervent hope that that wherever it is put, I'll start off at that point, wherever it is put, the community of people using it and the community of people living near it can live together and understand each other And to me, that's really important, because particularly where you have a group of young people, predominantly young people, shall I say, and a domestic population that is probably older, generally speaking, than the user group of the skate park. It is in both their interests for them to get along with each other and understand each other. And that's not giving license to anybody on either side. It's saying to them, you know, good behaviour is expected. I think that's important. I mean, after all, the activity that we're talking about is something that happens in the Olympic Games, and in general, it's probably a good idea to provide facilities for people to become proficient in activities like that. Now, is this the right place? Well, quite a lot of work has gone into trying to work out where we should put the replacement for the skate park that was at the back of the swimming pool. And I suppose somewhere near that location is probably not a bad idea, because it is A, next to a high-frequency bus route, and B, not far away from the Spen Valley Greenway, which also gives the opportunity for people to approach the site other than by a car. You know, one does occasionally see people on skateboards on the Spen Valley Greenway. So there is a presumption that a route like that can be used to access this facility. Now, should it have been put somewhere else? Well, we're not being asked that at this meeting. We're being asked to give permission or not to a skate park in the location that we have visited this morning. On balance, I think there is a strong argument for agreeing to that. And I say that not just because I and other ward colleagues have invested quite a lot of time in trying to plan for a skate park, but it has a lot of positives, the location. As somebody said earlier, it's visible from the main road, and that, to me, is a good thing. I don't know whether there will be a lot of noise that becomes intolerable. I think we have to work through that issue, which will require understanding on both sides. And I think that, as I say, on balance, I'm generally speaking in favour of this. So because it's providing a facility for young people, of which we have very few in the Spen Valley and other places. Thank you, Chair.
You wanted to come back, Councillor Gray?
Thank you, Chair. It was just a question about the implementation of a condition for security cameras for the safety of the community and young people. Is that something that other members may agree with on as a condition, if it was to be passed in the eventuality? Thank you.
Can we, if we did decide to approve this, can we condition that?
Yes, through you, Chair, we could include a condition for the provision of CCTV. So if members would like that included before they go to vote, we can vote on that as part of the recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
I'll bring you back, Councillor Hall.
What it is, what we've found out is, we found this out from McDonald's, much as I hate him, I'll mention their name. We were told that if you've got CCTV and Wi-Fi, one thing what you can do, you can say to people that go to that attraction. If you don't behave yourself, we will switch off the Wi-Fi. And what they've said at McDonald's is, lo and behold, it works. Because they like to use the Wi-Fi, that's why they go. If you do the same at this place, you can always use Wi-Fi as a tool to say, right, if you don't behave yourself, we'll switch it off. So I'd like to see Wi-Fi and CCTV installed as a condition.
I've just been whispered to we can't install Wi-Fi.
Oh, well, CCTV, I'll settle for that then.
I just make a comment, mention that Councillor Gregg mentioned CSOs. We can't condition that, but ward members, I'm sure, if this is approved, can have a word with their local police and the CSOs and actually ask them to visit. In favour of supporting this? Councillor Law.
For.
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 Abstain.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
And Councillor Gregg.
For.
For. Thank you. That's carried, members. No, sorry. No. Because that's been moved and carried. We're moving on to the next application. Sorry. None. Sorry. Not a, it's. Sorry. Yes, please.
A vote has been made on the application now. If there's a complaint, the complaints procedure is available on the public website and we will deal with it in that way. If you can leave the room now, please, so we can move on to the next item. Thank you.
Nice comments from a policeman.
This is exactly...
Yes.
Can you remember, were you there with the Nash one, Joe, the Highburton skate park, and the police overstepped?
I think it's, yeah, I'm really sorry, you know that I unfortunately need to leave at 2:55. It's not there yet, but I'm going to hope that this is...
Application number 2023/90434 on page 203.
So thank you, Chair. So my name's Elenia Jackson and I'm the case officer for this application, which is the change of use of a ground floor of a former public house into a community facility and a prayer room. So this application has been brought to Planning Committee due to the number of representations received in relation to the proposal. There were 49 objections and 51 in support of the application, and all material planning considerations have been addressed within the officer report under section 10.27 and 10.29. So the site is located on Dewsbury Road, approximately 2.6 miles north of the town centre, and the site is also in a greenbelt location, so hopefully you can all see it there. So the former public house has been vacant since 2020, and in order to demonstrate in accordance with LP48, further details have been provided of the marketing that was presented for the site prior to the receipt of this application. So in accordance with LP48, officers considered there as a suitable community facility 0.6 miles east of the application site, which is known as Hare and Hounds. For the reasons outlined in the officer report, officers are satisfied that the principle of the development would be acceptable. So this is the site as it stands at the moment. There are no concerns raised by KC Highways. Otherwise, a condition has been recommended for the implementation of bollards to the principal elevation of the site. And this is the proposed site layout. And by way of an update on the application, there is a recommendation by Kirklees environmental health officers that should the application receive permission, there should be a condition related to hours of operation on the site. But in conclusion, the proposal has been assessed against all relevant local and national policies, and the officer recommendation is to approve. So this is showing the approximate location of the Hare and Hounds in association with the site. And this is the proposed development.
Thank you. We have 3 speakers on this item. Councillor Zaman. You have 5 minutes, Councillor Zaman.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the change of use of the ground floor of a vacant public house to a multi-use community centre with a small prayer room. There would be no increase in footprint to the building, and the first floor of the property would be retained as a residential unit. After thoroughly reviewing the planning application and engaging with the residents in a discussion with numerous constituents residing around the application site, I wholeheartedly lend my support to the proposed scheme. I acknowledge the historical significance of the public house as a vital community facility for the local residents, especially those living around the site. Unfortunately, the public house had been inactive since 2020, and as far as I understand, attempts had been to find alternative viable uses for the site have proven unsuccessful. Within close proximity to the application site, there are 2 other drinking establishments, the Sootle Working Men's Club and the Woodkirk Valley Country Club, which can provide alternative options for residents in the Woodkirk and Sootle areas. The current application presents an opportunity to revive this prominent building at the junction of Leeds Road and Sootle Lane. This ensures its long-term maintenance and safeguards it from falling into disrepair. Furthermore, it offers an alternative community-based use that would greatly benefit the local community, indicating the necessity for a facility of this size in the area. Additionally, the numerous supportive comments received for the application underscore the strong demand for this facility in the community. The proposal offers a safe and inclusive space where community members can come together, interact, socialise and pray. It will bring communities from across different faiths, building on community cohesion in the area. I believe the proposal would benefit the community immensely as the area has limited youth facilities. It would reduce antisocial behaviour, improve health in walking distance, and would improve the character of the area. Such provisions help foster natural support groups that positively impact on general health and well-being. The primary objections raised regarding the scheme pertain to concerns about noise from the premises and potential traffic. While these concerns are valid, it's essential to weigh the proposal against the lawful use of the public house. I believe the proposal is unlikely to have more significant impact on the local area in terms of noise and traffic when compared with the lawful operation of the site. It's worth noting that there are many community and prayer facilities in Batley and Dewsbury area situated within residential settings. To the best of my knowledge, these facilities are not generating noise complaints to the council. I also want to highlight to the planning officer, along with colleagues in the highways and environmental health, has not raised concerns with the application. Therefore, I hope that members of the committee will align with the planning application. the officer's recommendation and support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Can we have Jeremy Parkinson, please? You have 3 minutes, Jeremy.
Thank you, Chair. The nature and scale of the use of this property, the proposal is for a community centre with a small prayer room. However, the proposed use of the facility and the likely user community have both expanded as documents have been updated or added through the planning process. Information remains incomplete, lacking in fact-based detail, or is contradictory. This is on the part of both the applicant and their agent, as well as the council officers. Link this to information that is available on the public forums elsewhere, and the increase in confusion grows further. Use of the facilities are now variously described as socialising, worship, youth work, charity work and counselling. Each one of these uses is different and each brings its own questions as to how the facility will be used, when, by whom and how many. Is use going to be concurrent, consecutive or a mixture? In terms of the user community, the stated aim of the principle of the change of use is improve social interaction and contribute to a healthy and inclusive community. I offer that this will not happen. No evidence has been provided that properly demonstrates the existence of a user community within the catchment area of the facility. As the body of material available on this matter has expanded, so has the proposed catchment area. Initially it was for Upper Suthill. It's now expanded to include Dewsbury, Dewsbury Moor, Batley, Morley, Tingley and East Ardsley. This is in addition to 2 separate mentions of it catering for commuters passing on the A653. This application is for a community facility for a community that does not exist in the area where the facility is located. At best, the facility is on the very periphery of the community it is designed to serve. At worst, is it the centre of an existing well-established community that it will disrupt. In terms of policy, both national and local, is that whilst policies can be quoted that support the application or cherry-picked, when the whole body of documents is considered, the proposal is most definitely not coherent with them. Comment has already been made that there is a balance, or roughly a balance, between objections and support, 49 versus 51. However, the body of evidence on both sides is very, very different. Support is primarily generic, and points might be valid, they're not valid in relation to the location of the facility. However, objections raised address material concerns. The highway safety concerns, basic traffic flow analysis using between 3 and 5 vehicles through three traffic light sequences demonstrates the fragility of the management system at the junction. I could go on. However, to summarise, documents provided are superficial and lack rigour in terms of their analysis of the issues involved and the assessment of their impact. They do not provide a solid foundation for a decision to be made that serves the best interest of all parties. I can only suggest that the only reasonable option now is to defer a decision and suggest that all parties resubmit their inputs, being mindful of the need to support their assertions with fact-based analysis or irrefutable logic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. Ifan Pando.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee and officers. Without sort of repeating what Councillor Habiban has already said and what the planning officer has already said, this is a change of use from a public house to a prayer facility. The existing lawful use of the public house is a significant material consideration. And, sorry, the lawful existing use of the public house is a significant material consideration. The site has been vacant since 2020 and has been marketed for well over a year with no interest from other public house operators or any other viable operators. This includes marketing on all the premier estate agent websites, Prime Location, Zoopla, Estate Agents Clearinghouse, as well as targeted mail shots all around the country for anybody who's got any express requirements in the area. There is no alternative use there. Unfortunately, the public house was another victim of COVID, shall we say, and you know, there's no other use there. There are other alternative options available within easy distance within a 5-minute drive, and there's several also at that. The proposed use is a community use that directly serves the local community, and therefore there is no loss in planning terms of a community use. The proposal is fully compliant with policy LP 48. When weighing the impact of the proposed use on local residents, consideration must be given to the existing commercial use of the site as a long-established public house, which was a licensed venue and had gaming machines and licensed operating hours until 12:30 a.m. There was a vertical drinking bar and alcohol served during those hours, as well as Kirklees Council issuing a licence for recorded music to be played indoors, as well as performance of dance and provision of entertainment or similar. It's considered that the existing use would generate that the existing lawful use generates far higher levels of noise and comings and goings and activities, particularly at night compared to the proposed use, as well as public nuisance, antisocial behaviour and public disorder. During the day, the community centre use is expected to attract only a small number of visitors who may want to socialise or gather, and also for prayer. Prayer will largely be silent. Congregational prayers will be conducted quietly and last only around 15 minutes, and noise from the site will be minimal and far below what's existingly approved. It's noted that there will be no sound amplifiers either inside or outside the premises, and for all those reasons we respectfully request that you approve the application. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Just to further summarise the highway section of the report, due to the small scale and nature of the proposed use, i.e. no weddings or birthday parties permitted, Highways consider the provision of 2 spaces for the first floor accommodation and the additional 12 spaces for the ground floor to accommodate 19 worshippers would be sufficient from a Highways perspective. Additional bollards have been requested to prevent parking and vehicle manoeuvres at the junction, and this will be secured by a suitable condition. HDM consider the proposals acceptable overall. And just a further note, it has been mentioned a few times already, but the traffic associated with this development will be considered a reduction in terms of intensity compared to the building being brought back into use as a public house. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. The loss of this venue as a public house is regrettable. Unfortunately, lots of pubs are closing up and down the country. I think about 30 a week, I heard last. So it's a shame. However, we are not arbitrating on that today. We're looking at the application in front of us. I think from my understanding, a lot of the visitors to the community centre are going to be coming by car. I counted about 13 spaces in the car park, maybe a few more that you could squeeze a car into at a tight angle round the back. At the front, the council are proposing to condition, should this be approved, my understanding is bollards at the front. My only concern with that was that if the bollards are extended right round to the far right of that photograph up there, it would displace 2 extra spaces that could be used at the front of the building. And I think I discussed on the site visit that it might be better to have a couple of those bollards placed further back to allow a couple of vehicles to park, just to maximise parking, because otherwise there could be potential for parking in other areas on popular occasions that the venue was being used in. Those were my comments from the visit. I don't know whether that can be taken into consideration at this stage or not. Thank you.
Gwen, Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as Councillor Gregg said, sad to see another public house close, but obviously we don't want to see a derelict building created there. I've just got a couple of questions. I don't know if I might sound daft on this. I've got to just get this right. It's on 10.21 and 10.22. It says that the proposed prayer hall has capacity for 19 worshippers. So I just want to know how that will be monitored. But 10.21, I'm just a bit confused with the opening times. The prayer facility is proposed to be open 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. Now that to me is 5 a.m. in the morning to midnight. Is that correct? It shouldn't be 12 p.m. Thank you for verifying that. And then the other part of the building is going to be a community centre, open 11:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. What's the capacity for people to be using the community centre, but also because of the opening times of the prayer facility and the community centre, you're going to get increased parking. So that could have a problem with highways because you've only got 14 parking spaces. And sorry, just going back as well, the 5 a.m. opening to the prayer facility, will that affect the person living in the flat above? Sorry, a bit complicated, but...
Thank you, Chair. I just have one simple question. Is there any suggestion that the premises would be used as a madrasa?
Two things. One, I wouldn't like to see parking at the front of the building because that would mean either reversing onto it from that main road or driving onto it and then reversing out, which I think when you see speeds and see some accidents that I have seen on that section of road, there should be no parking whatsoever at the front of that building. The other thing is, what business rate banding would this fall under, or anything for rates or not? No, I just wouldn't, you know. Don't.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, initially I had a couple of issues along the lines of LP 48, but from what's in the document and from what came out of the the visit today, I think all that has fallen away. So I think I'm happy with the principle of it being where it's being and what it's operating on. Just to pick up on Councillor Lowe's points. I'm torn here between suggesting something and not suggesting it. I'll say it anyway. With the upper end of people who are expected to be in the building at any one time, we can put a cap on that, I suppose, and we can ask for monitoring to happen, especially in the first 6 months or something like that. What I'd question with that, though, is it reasonable considering the previous use of the building, and would it do us any good, or do we just monitor it on a more informal level? And I think that's what I'm struggling with to express. So I'll leave that with officers and see what they have to say about that. Otherwise, and if we can keep the parking as Councillor Hall suggests, then I'm happy to move this, Chair, as officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think this building is not a very big building to attract large number of community members. It's a very small pub place, yeah? I think the use of place for the community is for the community benefit, yeah? Yeah, but I don't know how large community is around this building. But as Councillor Greg has said, The lot of pubs have been closing down recently. As you have said, 30 pubs closing down every. I know it's a very famous, popular building. Only way to preserve this building is the use for the community purpose, yeah. So I agree with the Council Hall about the parking and with Greg, there should not be parking on the front of this building, yeah. I don't think so many people will use the car because the place is very small as well. I don't think that there will be any noises going around, any antisocial behavior around this building once it's used for the community. Yeah. When it's a pub or somebody reopen this as a pub, it will create more noises, more antisocial behavior, more banging car doors in late night. So it's better if this place has been used by the community, which has been said in the report. So I'm actually in support of this application. Thank you.
So come back.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify, really, that I wasn't actually advocating for parking in front of the building. It was on the right-hand side where the fence is, just that was blocking that previous entry there. Only because what we can't see to the right of that picture is there's like a parade of shops, or a couple of shops there, and they have parking outside the front there. And I'd noticed there were a couple of cars parked there, and I just thought, a bollard it would displace parking. And my concern was that if on busy event days that there was a lot of vehicles that couldn't park round the back in the car park, they'd then be parking even more dangerously. That was my logic, but I made the point. Thank you. Thank you.
Before I bring officers in, and the very point you mentioned, that's a post office at the side, a very busy post office. But parking at the front in any way in front of this building is dangerous because of the proximity of the crossings and the very busy highways. Parking outside the post office is a completely different layout to this.
Through you, Chair. With regards to Councillor Gregg's question about displacing those two spaces, I think that point's been covered because Councillor Hall and Councillor Firth have sort of answered the question for me that we won't want to actively encourage vehicles reversing on and off the pavement so close to that junction. So to discourage that, that's the whole idea of those bollards. So that's why we've requested that condition. I think the other question was about the overall parking provision in the car park to the rear. Now, given the overall floor area of the development, along with the indicated prayer facilities for 19 worshippers, overall highways consider the provision of 12 spaces sufficient from a highways perspective. Now, up Suthill Lane, there is actually some unrestricted on-street parking available. But it is again, as I previously said, it is considered that the 12 spaces will be able to cater for users of this proposal. So highways are content with that at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
So in terms of some of the questions, so Councillor Lowe, I understand you asked about sort of the opening times in conjunction with the number of people. So Environmental Health hadn't put any objections in, but as I sort of mentioned, they had sort of requested conditions in terms of the opening hours of the site in line with their the sort of recommendations put through in the officer report. They'd also requested a condition in terms of anything in terms of amplification or anything like that on the site, noise controls. Yeah, and they've already put in like a noise assessment in terms of in relation to the first floor residents, which the environmental health officers have agreed with, and there's a condition in terms of that before the site is sort of implemented, the details should be carried out so to make sure that there is that sort of mitigation there. In terms of the number of people using the facility, I'll just skip along to, if you can look at the floor plan to the right, that's the proposed site. So there's a separation between the community area and the sort of prayer facility. So obviously those doors could be sort of closed to keep the community area just open within its operational hours. And then in terms of the number of people using the site, that can be tied in with the parking in terms of sort of like a booking system or a marshalling system or something like that could be put into place if councillors wish to sort of control the number of people able to access the site.
Could my question be answered, please?
You asked if the site was going to be a madrasa, didn't you? Apologies. It was our understanding that the site's not to be a madrasa. It's just the prayer hall and the community area. When questioned by officers, it was clarified that was just going to be sort of community facilities such as like potentially table tennis for young people or sort of like youth groups or something like that.
Yes, I'd like to come back on that, and I'd like to consider whether we need to put a condition in to say that there is no permission for a madrasa, simply because that could have the tendency to increase the number of people coming to the site. I mean, I don't know what other members think about that, but that's not a criticism or anything like that. It's purely a management issue, and I'm not wishing to imply any criticism, as I say. But I just wonder whether we need to ensure that the use of the site doesn't get out of hand, if you follow my reasoning.
Officers are just looking to see if that can be conditioned, if you'll bear with them.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, we're just taking a look at the minute just to see whether it falls within a different use class or not, because if it's a different use class, it would need planning permission anyway. But if it's within the same use class, then the condition would be reasonable. So we're just checking in terms of the use class there. So yeah, through you, Chair, it is within the same use class as the Class F1. So yeah, we if members think appropriate, we can include that as a condition. If members want to vote on that as part of the final recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Pinnock, you want to come back?
Well, only to the extent that I don't know what other members think about that, but as I say, I merely asked that question because of because it's a kind of different use. There's a more educational use, and if it became popular, then the capacity of the building could be compromised. That's my only concern, really.
Perhaps it won't be big enough anyway, Councillor Pinnock. But if you wish to condition it, please move. Councillor Lawson, you've moved.
I did, Chair. I moved that, and I'm happy to accept that as a condition. I think it would be a terrible thing if this application turned out to be a victim of its own success, as it were, if it became so popular or shifted slightly in its use and found itself in difficulties. I think that would be a terrible shame.
It's been moved by Councillor Lawson. Is this seconded by anyone? Councillor Hall seconded it. Councillor Lowe.
Abstain.
Councillor Hall.
For.
Councillor Sokal.
For.
Councillor Anwar.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Gregg.
Abstain.